And let's hear more about the social media story with Thomas Lee and Auden Utenjan, co-founders of Simplr.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Lee, and I am with a company by the name of Simplr, and we provide analytics of the many healthcare conversations that take place on the social web. We're probably best known for the Healthcare Hashtag Project, which is a database of in excess of 300 million healthcare tweets. And about 3 years ago, when we started gathering all these tweets, we noticed in looking at the data that the majority of the conversations that were taking place in healthcare really had to do with topics that were of interest to industry insiders. The patient conversations were somewhat buried at that time. But that's no longer the case. And as we look at the analytics from last year's Medicine X conference, what you're seeing up on the screen here is really a visualization of the social media conversation that took place. And every node that you're looking at is a Twitter account that was using the MedX hashtag. And we've actually identified the patient accounts as the green nodes. And as the conversation develops, you'll notice that some of those nodes are becoming larger than others. And those are the ones that are individuals that are actually more engaged, more centric to the conversation, more influential. And you see these bursts of lines going in back and forth between nodes. And those are lines of communication. It's one individual speaking to another. Over the course of the conference, we get to the end of this short video, and you can see that if we look at the whole thing all together, and it gives us a chance to really look at how dynamic that conversation was that took place here last year. So what's behind all of those dots? Let's take a quick look at some stats. And the first thing I want to point out is there were more than 1,300 people that were tweeting with the MedX hashtag last year. And they shared about almost 10,000 messages. And that left a huge footprint on the social web. And as a matter of fact, there were in excess of 1 million individuals who were exposed to some message, at least, that came out of this conference last year via social media. We can also look at the different languages that were being tweeted. And this is something, another example in a conference like this where via social media, the message can be repackaged and shared with an audience that otherwise might have been excluded. And then if we went back and took a look at the 50 most active participants last year and categorized everybody, it was the patients that rose to the top. And I personally like that. To me, that demonstrates that the topics, the environment at Medicine X is very patient-centric. And I also like the fact that you can see there's all these other stakeholders, though, that are conversing and sharing in the same topics of conversation. And I think the foundation, very strong event. I'd like to hand off to my colleague Auden to wrap up here.
Thank you, Tom. It's really a great pleasure to be able to dig into this data and look for stories to tell, ways to visualize what's taking place. And very often we find ourselves looking into the past, like we just did. But what about now? Can we visualize what's taking place right now, today, this moment? Together with the Medicine X team, we're going to show you some live, real-time analytics during this conference on these screens, usually between the sessions, during the breaks. And it's going to look something like this. So what you're seeing here is a network graph again of the last 500 conversational tweets. And since it's only looking at the last 500 messages, it's dynamic and will constantly evolve as the conversation inside here will evolve over time. Also in this view, we're looking at the conversational tweets. On the left, we're highlighting some people who are most central to the discussions. And the bottom graph shows you some of the sparks in the conversation over time. And we also like to look into the content of these tweets and see if we can find words that will make clear the topics being discussed. in this conference. But why? Why do we want to emphasize the social conversation and promote it? To try to answer that, I want to show you another visual. This is you last year. This network centrality graph visualized the people who were actually physically present in this room last year. And the speakers here today will be forgiven if they think of you only as today's audience. That used to be true, but that's no longer the case. Let me augment this graph by adding all of the social audience, not only those who were physically present. And as you can see, the number of people in the full social audience is many times the number of the people in this room. Even the connections between these people is also exponentially larger, not to mention the number of people reached. So what this graph demonstrates is something we already all know, that social enables us to enlarge the audience, to include also those who are not able to be here. And you never know which tweet will be the one that reached the right person at the right time, making a real difference in that one's own healthcare journey. Share the stories here today that will be unfold at Medicine X. These ideas are too important to remain in this room only. Thank you very much.